Hello, this is my new Begode Master. This is the first production run, not the prototype. I bought this on Alibaba and I air shipped it to the US. I'm doing this video because I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed with the performance of the stock shock because of its terrible bottoming out problem. Anyway, so what I've done is I've added a Fox shock. In this case, it's the Fox Float X, which has the little piggyback canister. And I was able to fit that by removing the bolt that goes through here with two individual 12 millimeter nuts. I had to grind down this nut here to make enough clearance to make it nice and comfortable. Also, what I did is I chose a shock that would bottom out at the same distance as what the suspension design does internally. So when the shock bottoms out, so does the travel and the movement of the wheel. To do that, I took some measurements off the old shock and came up with the Fox 230 millimeter shock with a travel of 55 millimeters. That gives only a 25 millimeter stroke of the shock during the suspension travel. And that is inherently part of the problem with this design, is that 25 millimeters doesn't give you a very good mechanical advantage when the shock is going up and down. Anyway, so to optimize and give this overall EUC the best bottom out resistance, I also added the largest spacer that goes, the volume spacer that goes into the shock up here. So another problem is this shock has an original nipple here, and that is very hard to access when it's mounted in the EUC, as you can see. And in fact, I actually broke off my nipple while trying to get that in. So, you know, this is just being held on by a couple threads of remaining nipple. And so what I did was I drilled a brand new hole into my brand new shock and basically threaded, I tapped threads into it and mounted a new nipple. And so far, I mean, it was a bit hard to get it to seal. I used a lot of Teflon tape to do that, but so far so good. It's holding air. And that's now I can mount a pump and in and out no problem. So that's great. And so far the shock as it is great. I can ride. I'm about 180 pound rider, and I'm able to run it less than 300 psi, and I have no bottom out issues. I do notice it does have a top out kind of clunk now because there's a little extra travel in the suspension, so it kind of clunks as it tops out, you know, going up over the bump. When you're in the air, it'll have a little clunk, but that's far better than having that huge clunk when you land. So that's a good trade-off. There's a little bit of clearance issue. You can't see it now because I have a cover mounted here. But this little arm here will kind of cut into the shock. So I kind of ground inside of this bar right here to give it a little more clearance. And so far it hasn't destroyed the shock. It's definitely scratched the shock, but not destroyed it. So that's great. Yeah, so the other thing I did with this wheel is I added an extension to this little inner fender. This little metal fender is unfortunately way too short. Rocks flying off this wheel will have direct contact with the delicate surface of the shock that, you know, holds air. So you don't want that to get scratched or marred by, you know, rocks being hurled at it at high speeds. So I've extended this fender. It's very easy to do, actually. This little internal metal fender is only held in by 3 screws. So 3 small screws, it'll come out, and then you can mount, or in this case, I riveted a piece of aluminum, which I just hand bent to get in this shape. And it's very cheap to do. And it'll extend out the front and give a little bit more protection on the front of the EUC as well. So we'll see how that works in rain and stuff. But, you know, the whole goal was to protect the brand new shock from getting damaged from rocks coming off the wheel. So the last thing I would add is this Fox Float DPS shock is, I would say it's not ideal because I have all the compression dampening cranked all the way and all the rebound compression cranked all the way. And my feeling is I still want more dampening. So I feel like the dampening adjustments aren't enough to really be perfect for this EUC. So I may end up trying some other brand. I don't know. Maybe Fox can, help me get more dampening out of their shock. We'll find out. I don't know. Anyway, unfortunately, this shock is fixed the bottoming out, but it's still not perfect in my opinion.